Let's get right to the point. When you die in Minecraft, you are greeted by a death message, both on screen and in the chat. There's a whole variety of ways to die, and as such, there are a ton of different death messages. Also, apparently, being too soft for the world is one of them. In his video The Red Festival, Technoblade spams the chat when massacring the Dream SMP, producing a very long death message for sure. But what is the longest death message possible? Well, this question doesn't seem too hard to answer, but you actually have to dig quite deep. There are tons of different death messages in Minecraft that are all long in their own way. Let's look at a few simple ones. Player was pricked to death, player drowned, player experienced kinetic energy, player blew up, and so on, you get the point. So which one of these is the longest? Well, some honorable mentions include the Anvil death, and the Stalactite death, and the Weeping Vines death, but the longest base message in Java is actually the Sweet Berry Bush death message, or player was poked to death by a sweet berry bush. As for the player name, if we want to get the longest death message, we need a 16-character name. Obviously the name Wifies isn't close to 16 characters, but let's just pretend it is. And here we are. If we use a 16-character name and the Sweet Berry Bush death message, we are left with a 57-character including space death message. That's certainly lengthy, but we can make it much longer. But how? Because, as I'm sure some of you know, the player's name isn't the only unfixed thing in a death message. Case in point, the trying to escape blank death message. For example, player got pricked to death whilst trying to escape zombie. As such, we can combine the pricked berry bush death message with a certain mob to extend it even further. How much further though? Well, to figure that out, we need the longest mob name in Minecraft. Any guesses? Well, the longest mob name in Minecraft that can hurt you to my knowledge is the Zombified Piglin, whose name is a lengthy 16 characters. If we combine this death message with the previous, we get a total of 98 characters, and that can't even fit on one line anymore. But this actually isn't the longest death message possible, because there's one more obscure format for death messages that enables us to make this already insane text even bigger. Remember back to the intro where I talked about Technow's massacre. To my knowledge, the most unfixed and longest possible death message is player went off with a bang due to firework fired from item by player/mob. Basically, not only is the message super long, we have 3 spots to play around with. With the player dying, the item name, and the player or mob shooting the crossbow, we have a lot of freedom to explore and make this death message super long. We already have the first player name, but what about the item name? How long can we name an item? After doing some basic testing, the limit of naming an item in an anvil is 35 characters, or the whole alphabet plus the first 9 numbers. This also combines with 2 brackets around the renamed item. I sadly don't have 2 accounts with max letter names, but in theory, the limit with a renamed crossbow and another 16-character named killer would be 124 characters. But that's not all. Using commands, we can spawn in a pillager with fireworks in one hand and a crossbow in the other. Thus, he can blow us up and we can rename this pillager to the same A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. that we renamed the crossbow. This would result in a 143-character death message. And also, do note, for whatever reason, pillagers have awful aim with fireworks. That doesn't matter, but it is kind of something funny. So, is this the limit of death messages? Well, yes and no. There's a second method that I'll touch on soon, but I'll first discuss the more interesting one. If we want our death message to be any longer, we have to redefine our definition of length. If we define length as the amount of characters, there's little we can do in this scenario. But if we define as length as how much space the death message actually takes up, in chat for example, we can increase it substantially. For instance, what if instead of A, B, C, D, E, etc., we just used 35 W's? It would still be the same number of characters, however, since W is wider than all the other letters except for M, it would take up a bit more space in chat. And this begs the question, what is the widest character? In the English alphabet, it is W, keyword English. In ASCII, there are a lot of different characters, but the longest is this one, an Arabic character. This looks like it would mean a ton of different words, which it does, but in reality it's just one symbol that the computer treats as one unit. For reference, here is a sheep named ABCDE etc, and here is a sheep named 35 infinities, a pretty long symbol, and here is a sheep named 35 of the Arabic character, the longest ASCII character. It's not super notable, but it is longer. So while a normal death message can only take up around 2.5 lines, this one takes up a solid 3. Again, it's not a huge difference, but it certainly makes an impact. On the topic of language though, we can actually increase the fixed portion as well. Previously, the only part of a death message we could alter was the item name and player name, but if we care about length and not characters, we can change the language to take up even more space. After some very brief research, the longest language I could find was Tamil, a language spoken in Sri Lanka, India, and Singapore. Truth be told, I didn't search every single language in Minecraft, I just went on first impressions. However, our once 3-line English death message now takes up 4 lines in Tamil, certainly longer. And this is where we run into a bit of a roadblock. But again, there is one more method I have in store that can make it even longer. In fact, my last strategy is so grand, it can have more English characters, Tamil characters, whatever than ever before. And that is command block naming items. You see, previously I've been naming the pillager with a name tag when he spawns in. However, an alternative method would be assigning him a custom name in the command block. With this, the previous limit of 35 characters no longer applies, and we can have absurdly long names for our pillager and crossbow. In fact, we can copy and paste the longest Arabic ASCII character many times in, and when you look at the name tag of the pillager, it stretches across the entire screen as far as the eye can see. So what is our limit now? Well, there are actually 2 conflicting sources on how many characters can fit inside a command block. Googling it, the result is 32,767 characters, while the Minecraft wiki states that it's actually 32,500 characters. Let's stick with the Minecraft wiki for now. Because I don't want to type out 32,500 characters, I'll just discuss what it would look like. And it certainly is insane, although a bit boring. You see, in English, we have the potential to make this interesting with whatever letters we want. We could literally make the whole B-movie script. However, if we want the best of the best in terms of length, we're just going to need to spam the Arabic symbol. Considering the limit of a command block is 32,500 characters, the longest we can name both our pillager and crossbow equally is 16,101 Arabic symbols each. That's nuts, and it would look something like this. Very bland, but still very cool at the same time. And to my knowledge, this is the longest possible death message in Minecraft, an immense 32,276 characters. Jesus. This death is very rare and probably, actually, definitely never going to happen. Speaking of rare though, what are some of the rarest death messages? I know there are a ton of videos like this on YouTube, and I know you don't want to see the same squish to death message over and over. You want something new, right? Well, how about illegal death messages? These death messages are either unable to happen but still in the game's code, straight up unused, or removed from Minecraft. For example, the death message "player was roasted in dragon breath" was added in snapshot 15W31C to show that a player had been killed by a dragon fireball. However, because the dragon fireballs actually don't do any damage, unlike ghasts for example, this death message will never appear in Minecraft. Another example is attack.death.dryout. It has a strange name and was coded to occur when a fish dies from being on land. Well, unlike wolves, fish can't be tamed, and so while a wolf could, in theory, have a death message in chat, your fish wouldn't, thus making this death message also unsendable until you can tame fish. There are also tons of death messages that exist in a language file but have no code to make them appear. These include "player was doomed to fall" and all of its respective variants, "player fell too far and was finished," and "player was killed by even more magic." There's also "player was too soft for this world," but that was only added for a temporary nightmare mode. Sounds like a fundy video. These final death messages were actually removed from Minecraft, and they had an interesting format that we don't see much of. following the format of player first and player last. For instance, player fell off some vines and into a patch of cacti, or player was pummeled off a ladder and got finished off using item, or my personal favorite, player got blown out of the water and fell out of the world. There are a whole bunch of combinations that you can mix and match with, and it's a shame that they were removed from Minecraft. However, with all of that said, that wraps up today's video. Thank you so much for watching, please do subscribe, and as always, peace out, have a good one.